What's up, guys? What's up? All right. Let's get this all taken care of. What's up, everyone? Happy Friday. Happy weekend series. Today, you got some games starting pretty soon, like in a couple hours. I think let me see what the let's see what the latest game is tonight. Actually, I may need some of your guys. What time does this 1 o'clock live start? Well, it's like game start, Dust. It's supposed to start at 1, but there's the national anthem. The umpires are late, and then the pitcher's taking longer than normal to get loose. So we're a 1:13 start, 1:13 first pitch here. Actually, it started earlier. It started 5 minutes ago. So it started at 1:08. But I like to get people time to join in. Let's see what time the last game is tonight. Looks like I'm looking for a late night exciting game. I may host a space later tonight, like late, like 9:30 or 10 o'clock, something like that, maybe a little later than that, and just go over scores from the day. And there's going to be some games going on. I'm looking for them right now, like West Coast games. See if there's anybody on the West Coast. It looks Kennesaw State, West Virginia. That actually probably be a fun series. Let's look. What are the late games? Nope. Oregon State, San Diego, but like that's going to be Hawaii is always exciting. Yeah, like you're not wrong. Oh, nope, none of those. Golly, it's like every time I see a 9 o'clock game, I'm just like, just got off doing Oregon USC tonight. Yeah, that's the best one I've seen so far. That's the best one I've seen. And I know Andy Stankiewicz, so obviously played for the Yankees, like big league player. His son, I was teammates with his son my last year in Indy ball. And his son's a good player, so I'm interested to see. I think he is. USC's playing pretty well, and obviously they're trying to. I mean, they're trying to get that program back into the limelight because it's just again like with the decline of the West Coast baseball in general, as far as just like colleges that are really strong. USC's kind of fallen away as well. Let's see. I'm not seeing much right now, guys. It's just that it looks like that USC Oregon game is like the one to watch late at night. Grand Canyon, Texas Tech at 8. Like that'd be a solid game. Yeah, that's it. I think it's just USC Oregon, so we could watch that later tonight. But I need you guys to help me. How do you like? I do a stream, but I'd make it a space. You know what I mean? Or do I just have to make a space at the same time? I don't know. It's only Big Ten. Maybe we just do a stream in a space and just talk about games on during the day and stuff. Brought to you by Ghost Energy. Ghost Energy. Okay. Please sponsor me. Okay. Let's see here. All right. Yeah. USC Oregon. That's definitely the best one at late on East Coast time. But I believe it's okay. Big Ten. Yep. It's really amazing to see what's become of Fullerton, Arizona State, USC. Yeah. UCLA. Think about it. UCLA, Cal, like Long Beach, Fresno State. Dude, like in the 2000s when me and Dusty and some of you, like I don't know how old some of you guys are, but like when we were coming up and like kind of like starting getting close to that like high school age, those were like the best teams in the country. Like those were the best teams in the country, bro. It was very the Pac-12 was like probably at that point is was West Coast baseball in general was just like top of the game. Now you could say like Southeast, it was like maybe not better than Southeast, but it was on par. And now it's not even close. Like that's the crazy thing is you think about some of those teams like Fresno State that was always good, Long Beach that was always good, Arizona State that was always good. Um, it's just like man, it's just like they've fallen off the map, man. Cal State Fullerton was like amazing, and again, like Augie Garrido was a massive part of that. Um, And but it's just like, dude, like Cal State Fullerton is not Cal State Fullerton anymore. Like Fuller and that's the funny thing because you watching this new MLB game coming out. Cal State Fullerton's one of the schools you can go to in like the game. Like I guess you can like either get drafted at college or high school. I don't know, but there's like 8 teams, and they like decided to put Cal State Fullerton in there. And it's like whoever is making this game like has no idea who's good in college baseball anymore because Cal State Fullerton again, it's like it's not it's fine, but it's not the Cal State Fullerton of like 2008 or 2009, of like the 2000s. And the 2000s Fullerton teams were sick. Yeah, they were disgusting. And the best JUCO was in Cali as well. All the top JUCO players went there. Forget the name of it. Yeah, I'll let you come up with it, Cougs. Cougs, sup, fellas? What's up, man? Yeah, so I mean, we got a good slate of baseball uh, coming up. I mean, Georgia is the top 25. The earliest game is Georgia against Columbia. I mean, that's going to be a snooze fest. Should be a very easy win for Georgia. Um, and then Stanford Cal. Or Stanford North Carolina. That should be a good game. Again, just to see like okay. Kyle, don't look, but guess Fullerton's record last year. I want to say, dude, I'm being serious. I think it was like, I feel like I'm going to be way off. I think it's like 18-40 or something. Like it's like something ridiculous. De Anza, Santa Ana, Dusty. I saw Fullerton almost get no hit last year at home. So why has there been such a decline in the West Coast teams? Zach, that's a good question. What's up, Orphe? What's up, man? Have you noticed an increased lack of desire to help the team win over the years? 100%. 100%. There's way less kids just aren't taught 16-38. Yeah, dude, I knew it was bad. Like that's amazing that Cal State Fullerton was that bad. No, Orf, like I think it's 100% true that players are just way more selfish now. Like even in like high school, like again, when you get like professional baseball, at some point you are like playing for yourself to get to the big leagues. But like in college and high school, you see players all the time that are just like not good teammates and again, not playing to win, just care about their individual stats. And again, everyone cares about their stats, but like it's not willing to have team oriented at bats and everything. That's definitely on the rise and fundamentals across the board and baseball IQ. They're all way down. It's not even close. Elijah Monsanto. I asked advice for timing last week about my problem with being late, no matter the velo. I tried to start extremely early, like you said, and it's been working for me so far. Still working on it. Yeah, man. Just keep working on it, dude. Again, it's like when you try something new, especially on the hitting side, it's going to feel weird. It's like it's going to take a couple weeks for you to get comfortable. And I'll give you an example. I had this kid that I coach, and he was just like, again, he's like 6'6", and he was like spread out, no stride, everything. And I'm just like, dude, you got to get athletic. Like we got to get a leg kick in here. And it looked awkward and it felt awkward to him, but he moved way better. And now it looks so good and it looks so comfortable. So it took him a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks to really get comfortable doing it. Or if do you feel that Do you feel that could help players get recruited if they are winning players? 100%, man. I mean, again, it's like it's tough. I think definitely out of the portal, out of JUCO, if you're seen as a winning player, that's a bonus. Again, coaches are looking for dogs. Like they're looking for guys that are tough, hard nosed, uh, and guys that have a baseball IQ. Like that is attractive because I can tell you at the college game now, like it's frustrating for a lot of coaches how low the baseball IQ is just in general across the board. Coach K, what you said NIL and coaching? Did I miss did I miss something else? No, I didn't miss it. Okay, let's see where we're at. Canes, the reason the West Coast, let me pull it up on the, I don't have you guys pulled up on the screen. Let me just pull it up on the screen. All right. Now I got to read some of the backlog. The reason the West Coast has died is because they can't land top players in Cali. Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second, Zach. I didn't forget about you. We gotta get through. I gotta speed through some of these. How do you get a winner who potentially doesn't have the easy read numbers onto a good program? That's difficult, man. That's difficult. Um, Again, one of the issues in recruiting now is with the portal. They can look at numbers at a guy who's performed, and it's like they may not know much about the makeup of the player, and they may be bringing in a guy who's not a good clubhouse guy. That's not a necessarily a hard worker. Um, so it's tough. I mean, college recruiting's just never been more difficult than it is now, especially for high school players. I mean, again, like you may be a winning player, but if they don't think you cut it tools wise, physicality wise, like they're probably not going to go after you again. And I mean, that was me, right? Like I had some tools, but I looked like a middle schooler, and like you had to come see me play 5 or 6 times to really get that I was a gamer, because you just came and saw me once on a bad day, you're like, oh, this kid can't play. But if you watch me 5 or 6 times, then you got it. Zach, do a breakdown of Stanford versus North Carolina. That seems to be the best series this weekend. We will do that, 100%. Let me just speed read through these questions. Remember, USC is private, just like Miami. Stanford is elite academics, right? Exactly, Canes. And what did I say on that space the other night? Uh, the teams that, since the portal and NIL have happened, the teams that have gotten crushed and have kind of fallen down a little bit are the high academics and the private schools. That's it. Those are the schools that are hurting. And you could just see that across the board. I mean, again, like schools like Vandy, even schools like Vandy, like they're not quite, again, they're still good, but they're not quite the same as they were. Or take care, okay, keep it rocking. Thank you. Yeah, dude. See you, man. Thanks for joining in, man. That's one of my best buddies from pro ball. Played in the big leagues, guys. Nathan Orff. I want to talk about a guy with, hope he's still in here, guy with not probably the least talented guy, and he would admit it, least talented guy on any team he played on in pro ball, and he played in the big leagues. So tells you about his work ethic. Guy worked harder than anybody else. Thank you, Dusty Isaacs. Yep. UCLA, another good academic school. Yep. Mid majors have no excuse, I think, but the cost of living in Cali is expensive. Yeah, I mean, dude, go do yourself a favor and go on Zillow and just look around like California. It's insane. It's like a 1,200 square foot house for like $2 million. So I don't even know how people live there. I really don't. Everything is cheaper in the South besides Miami. Yeah, Elijah, it starts with your lower half. Try to turn your back toe in so your hips get through quicker. Try to turn your back toe in, so your hips get through quicker. I'll have to think about that one, Coach. I'm trying to visualize it. All right, let's go to Zach. Let's talk about your question about why the West Coast has fallen off. Like Canes is getting into it here. Right, there's still some good teams over there. Right, Oregon's good. Oregon State is good. It'll be interesting to see what Oregon State decides to do conference-wise, because like it just seems like they belong. I mean, really, they belong in like the ACC or the SEC, just talent-wise. They're really good. But like, man, it's like all of a sudden you go out, you after Oregon State and Cal, obviously you got Santa Barbara, but it's a mid-major. There's just not much else out there. I mean, really, it's crazy because you're talking about like UCLA is like a blue blood of college baseball, and it's almost like they just disappeared. It's like all of a sudden they just nobody's there. Um, and Canes is right. I mean, recruiting wise, again, when the Pac-12 used to be like a really good baseball conference, and it's fallen behind the ACC and the SEC so bad. Again, remember the Sun Belt was ranked ahead of the Pac-12 in RPI. So yeah, no, UCSB is really good. They're very good. They have two really good arms. But it's just like if you're a premier talent, you want to play in the premier conferences. So you're not going to play it. You're not going to play in the Pac-12. I mean, that's just how it is. And again, and now the Pac-12 is not even a thing. So like you're not going to play in a conference like that. Now I do think you will see a little bit of resurgence because now you have some teams going to the ACC, obviously some teams in the Big Ten, and that's going to help. But still, it's like I don't know, man. I just don't. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to have to happen for the California schools to really get back on par um, with like the SEC and the ACC because it's right now it's not even close. It's not even close. Just like the depth of teams. And again, the Pac-12 is not even a thing anymore. All right, so let's look at Cal and Stanford or North Carolina and Stanford. Golly. Let me pull up North Carolina right now because I'm gonna and this is with the politics over there. I'm not a political guy, but it does play a factor for sure. 100%. That's fair, Canes. 100% fair. Like if again, like if like you just know over there that is going to be something you're dealing with, right? With NIL, do you really want to pay all that money in taxes? Yeah, I mean it's just everything's you're disincentivized in almost every possible way to play on the West Coast. Got to jump for a 130 BRB? No problem, Dust. Brandon Marks, Stanford was Pac-12 and will continue to compete with the best. Now ACC. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think Stanford again, they had a down year last year, but the 3 years before that, I mean, they were a top team in the country. It's not a question about Stanford, even though I mean, I don't know. I think they are kind of starting. You're starting to see the impacts on Stanford of the portal and everything. I don't think they're going to quite be the elite program that they were. Because think about it like this: even in the years that Stanford, forget last year, the 3 years before that, the Pac-12 was like a weaker conference than the Sun Belt, RPI wise. So you have to think about Brandon. Is that was Stanford elite, or were they just a really good team in a not very good conference? Which is what I'm saying. They were a really good team. Don't get me wrong, top 15 team for sure. Uh, but they're beating up on teams. Again, the Sun Belt, a mid-major conference, had a higher RPI than the Pac-12. So, like, Stanford is still going to be good. They're still going to be a really good team, I think. But again, they're going to be in the gauntlet of the ACC now. Like, there's no easy weekends, and there's like maybe one or two weekends for each team that looks like it should be a win. And in the Pac-12, that was not the case. I mean, the Pac-12, you're beating up on a lot of teams that are just not very good. So that's the question: is how is Stanford going to compete in the ACC? We'll see this weekend. We're going to take a look at it. We're going to look at North Carolina first. I feel like it makes the most impact with the coaches, the politics. It affects their hiring process. 100%, dude. 100%. Like, there's no question about that. No question about that. And again, it's like how much money you're getting made. All right, well, you're getting taxed like crazy. Like, why would you want to? Again, like you have to pay people more to go there to be a coach at on a West Coast school. Oregon has one big booster. They are the outlier. The West Coast is the worst spot. But craziest part, they might have the most talent in high school. Yeah, it like that's the thing. That's what's going on is like California baseball wise is still extremely talented, but like they're all going to the SEC and the ACC. None of them are going to West Coast schools. I mean, some of them are, right? But like just not nearly as much as there used to be. All right, let's pull up North Carolina, guys. This is for my boy Zach. And again, this probably is like because we're going to get to see Stanford against what is ranked, I think, the second best team in the ACC, but is the number one team according to the rankings in the ACC right now. And you guys will see what I'm saying about this team. Okay, the reason I rank Florida State ahead of them is I think offensively they're pretty even. I give the pitching an edge to Florida State. So I think Florida State's a better team than UNC. So let's look at the numbers. So 299 batting average as a team, like that's solid, right? Nothing crazy, but it's solid. OPSing 881 as a team, really good. 13 games, they've scored 106 runs, so they're they're well below 10 runs per game, which is kind of in that elite category. If you're at 10 runs or higher, really, that's kind of the marker. You like 10 is like really good. Elite's almost like 11 or higher. But 13 games, they've got 42 extra base hits. So they're averaging a little over 3 extra base hits per game, which is, again, it's good. 85 walks to 99 strikeouts. So good numbers there. Again, 25 stolen bases, 26 attempts. 11 of those coming from Kane Kepley. Stealing bases like a crazy man. But again, like none of these numbers are outstanding, right? They're all good. They're all probably in that really good to really good range for what we're seeing in like top 25 and like the power conferences. But there's just nothing that really sticks out. So I think you're not giving an elite grade on this offense, but it's a really good offense. Now pitching, 318, 117 whip. Let's see, 119 innings pitched, 101 hits, 38 walks, which this is elite number, to 142. 19 extra base hits given up in 13 games. But we have to look at the opponents, and we will do that. And let's look at their starters. So Jason DeCaro, this guy is really good, but here's the thing. 18 innings pitched, 9 hits. I mean, giving up 1 hit every 2 innings, that's really good. 4 walks, right? Whip's way below. Whip's 0.72. Strikeouts 13 and 18 innings, right? So he's going 6 innings a start. So he's going deeper in starts than most starting pitchers are right now. But he's not missing a lot of bats. And again, that's fine. Like there's going to be some guys that just don't miss as many bats, but that means guys are putting the ball in play, and it means at some point he's going to get got. If you want to say it like that, he's going to get got. So we'll have to see. Even though again, like he's really good. Okay, I don't take this as me being like he's not that great. Like he's really good. But again, we'll talk about why Florida State, I think, pitching staff wise, has the edge. Aiden Hawk, 14 and a third, 12 hits, 5 walks, all really good, 21 strikeouts. So he's missing bats. His whip's at 1.2, which is solid. That's really solid, especially for like a college pitcher. But let's look at their other weekend starter right now. So they've had what looks like a couple guys with 2 starts. And they're, again, not having as much success. Boaz Folger, or Folger Boaz Folger Boaz, who was one of the this guy was one of their starters last year. He's got some appearances though out of the bullpen. Went back to the big. So, but like him right now, he's got a 1.38 whip. Like it's a little high. Again, like his whip's pretty high. He's 14 strikeouts and 12 and a third. It's fine. He's giving up 4 home runs. Um, I don't think like I just think right now Florida State's starting rotation is the best in the ACC. And again, if you have the best starting rotation in the ACC, I think typically as long as your offense is okay, uh, you're the best team in the ACC. That's just typically how it goes. And I'll show you what I mean here, guys. We'll go to Florida State real quick, and then we'll look at Stanford. But as you can see, like again, I'm not taking like Florida State or like UNC is really good. Like they're in that really good category on both sides of the ball. My point is, I don't think they're in the elite category quite. Their pitching staff, I guess, I think you could put their pitching staff in the elite category, like right on the edge of it. The offense is in like the really solid type category. So that's why I don't think they're the best team. All right, now let's look at Florida State real quick before we go to Stanford. So, all right, so with Florida State, let's see if I can zoom this in one more. Okay, yeah, here we go. With Florida State, offensively, look, they're hitting 341 as a team. 24 doubles, 2 triples, 17 jacks in 13 games. They've scored 119 runs in 13 games. So they're right at they're like at 9 and a third, 9 and a quarter runs per game. So they're scoring more runs than UNC. My CSO no showed me. Laugh out loud. I am back. Love it. Love it on a Friday, right, Dust? But look at so their offense again. They're driving the ball. They're stealing bases. They're 25 30. Dude, like everybody's stealing bases now. I don't know what it is, but like all of a sudden all these teams are like stealing bases. Which like we'll have to see if that continues in ACC play. But again, I'm giving the nod to to Florida State here. Their offense is in that elite category, right? They're OPSing as a team 955, and like UNC was OPSing as a team like 880, right? Which that's a pretty significant difference. Which that's a good point, Zach. Colin Poman are friends now. Dusty, we need you in the space tonight to make up with Poman. Colin Poman are friends now. Yeah. I mean, dude, it's just like, baseball conversations can get heated sometimes. Poman is going to exile me, Canes. After I sent Poman who Kyle and his dad were, he changed his tune very quickly. Okay, but now you guys are getting what I mean about this offense. Even if it's been against lesser competition, like everything is in that right range. And then if we look at the pitching, like the pitching to me is like ridiculous. So they're 237 as a team. Their whip, I got to do the math on it now, is all right. Let's see here. Walks. Okay. Their whip is like right over 1. It's like a 1.1. So they're like Miami's whip is better. Florida State's striking out a bunch of dudes, a lot like Miami. But again, like Miami, I think you have 3 frontline starters. Like, look at these numbers, guys. Wes Mendez, 0.6 ERA, 15 innings, 8 hits, 3 walks, 24 strikeouts. Joey Vellini, 1.1 ERA, 16 and a third, 10 hits, 3 walks, 24 strikeouts. Jamie Arnold, 1.12, 16 innings, 7 hits, 2 walks, 24 strikeouts. Like it's insane, just to be honest. And then even their fourth starter, 287, 15 and 2/3, 15 hits, 4 walks, 10 strikeouts. So like they're I think they are the best. UNC's played Texas Tech 3 times, which they're okay this year. Kansas State, East Carolina 3 times, and Coastal. Yeah, like that is the thing, Zach, is like East Carolina does not look great this year. Texas Tech, but you're right. No, Zach, you're definitely right. UNC has played definitely like significantly better competition. So we will have to like that's why this series this weekend with FSU and Stanford is going to be really good. I just think their weekend starters again, no matter who you're playing, Those numbers with three of your weekend starters are just like elite. Like there's plenty of teams that have played bad teams and they don't have those numbers. So that's my point. All right, let's go to Stanford. Canes Poman has to understand. My dad was he's part of the Florida Marlins starting, right? I was born into Florida Marlins royalty. I wouldn't be surprised if FSU's pitching pretty much maintains this pace through the season. Good pitching travels against good hitting. I'm not sure Arnold couldn't pitch in the big leagues in a big league bullpen right now. Yeah, and Dusty, this is a point I made. I think maybe yesterday. I just said like it's one thing if your pitching numbers are decent or even good against bad competition, but elite numbers usually indicates you're going to be pretty elite. Like there's just again, Danny Hultzen is going to throw up a 0 against a terrible team, like he's going to throw up against one of the best teams in the country. Uh, Obviously not 0 ERAs, but I think you'll see sub 3 up and down their top 5 arms. Yeah, yeah. I agree. Texas Tech is horrible, Kyle. They have no money for NIL, but somehow have $5 million for football portal money, but couldn't pay their baseball players. Strange, in my opinion, truly. Yeah, and just look at it. Look at it, man. I mean, Texas Tech really is a really good baseball program. And for them to just not be very competitive this year is so strange. Like it's so strange. And again, like I think ads like if you want your program to be good in baseball, you better start backing them financially. Like that's again because these guys, it's free agency now, man. And if they like, listen, I can't blame a kid. Like if a kid comes from like modest means, and he knows he's going to get like 150,000 in the portal, why wouldn't he leave, man? I'm sorry, but like that, and it maybe he would stay if you could offer him like 80 or something. But a lot of these schools are just kind of they're going to be dinosaurs in 5 years if they are not willing to kind of fight for the financial backing. And whether it's you got to go to your alumni or whatever. So yeah, I mean it's tough. Like it's tough to see Texas Tech in that situation. Again, it could just be a down year, right? But we're seeing a lot of these schools now that are like historically very good programs are just like all of a sudden it's like look at the downfall of West Coast baseball. I mean, it's just like what happened over there, and we talked about it a little bit. All right, let's see here. When Gino left, I wanted us to hire Tim Tadlock. He has been so consistent for years. Fell in love with him when they came to our regional in 2016. Yeah, and they always have those big Texas dudes. And I mean, listen, Tadlock's not leaving because he's got a lifetime contract, right? So think about it. Like Texas Tech has been one of the best programs, like sneaky best programs in the last decade. And he's done such a good job there. He's got a lifetime contract. Right. So why would he leave? But I'm sure he's frustrated with the financial backing. All right. Let's look at, can you guys read this? This is like awkward font, of course. They had to put like this BS font on here that you can hardly read. Exactly. But we are Miami. Laugh out loud. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But the thing is, like, if you're Tadlock, you're not going. And again, like, no offense, Canes, but like you know this, like Miami's kind of in that like rebuild phase right now. And like, if you're Tadlock, you're not leaving to go like rebuild a program. You're leaving to go to a top program. Can you read it now, Dust? Yeah, no, I knew. And like Zach, this weekend we get like we're going to get to see where teams are at, right? No matter if the Dusty, shut up. I zoomed in. Is it zoomed in enough or not? Just say yes or no. That's all I need from you. Okay. Notre Dame and Wake will also be interesting. Again, what I was saying is before Dusty just rudely interrupted me, and it's just unbelievable. Is this weekend you get to see where teams are at? Like the Virginia Tech Georgia Tech series, I can't wait for that to start. That's going to be a slugfest. And you're really, I think this weekend is a great test for Georgia Tech's arms because Virginia Tech is slugging, they're hitting, they're working walks. If Georgia Tech also loses this weekend, I wouldn't take too much from it. No, I think Virginia Tech is always, and you, Dusty, and no, can't read it. Jeez, man. All right, I guess I just got to zoom in. I can't do that zoom anymore. I'll just zoom in like crazy here. There you go. Now you guys can read it. I can read it from like far away from my computer screen. Winning on the road, if you're on your phone, it's probably tough. Winning on the road isn't easy. True Canes, and I think Virginia Tech and Dusty, like, correct me if I'm wrong. Virginia Tech is always highly underrated. They're always picked to finish like bottom of the ACC, and by the end of the year, they're fighting to host a regional. So it's a good test, right, Dusty? I think you would agree it's a good test. Virginia Tech's offense is going to be a good test for Georgia Tech's arms. That's what we're going to be paying attention to. And the balls fly out of that park as well. Could be an advantage for you guys. But Virginia Tech's offense is right up there as well. Like Virginia Tech's offense right now is in the elite category. Okay, so let's look at Stanford. As a team, they're hitting 326, really good. Driving the ball pretty well. Gosh, dude, I hate having to zoom in like this because then I got to move this shit over right here. All right, so let's look at runs scored. They've only scored, and this is the part that gets me. Oh, they scored 96. Okay, 96 runs in 12 games, so they're scoring like 8 something per game, which is just in that decent category. It's in that good category, but it's not anything better than good. And they're OPSing 926 as a team, which is solid. Walk to strikeout ratio, they're not walking that much. It's a little low. They're not stealing. I can't see the stolen bases. They're 7 of 10 on the bases. So for me, for Stanford, I think they're obviously they're the clear underdog, but they're not hitting. Let's see, they got 29, 44 extra base hits in 12 games. So they're averaging, again, just under 4, which is solid. Yeah, I agree, Dusty. I think John, I can never say his last name right. I'm Sheck, I think, or something. I'm going to mess it up. Always has this, they always overachieve. They're always like picked to finish in the bottom, let's say the bottom quadrant of the ACC, and they always finish above that. So, and again, at Virginia Tech, they don't have a lot of NIL support. I don't know if they're going to be going up on scholarships, and they just always seem to do a great job in development. They're very good at developing players. All right, so let's look at their pitching. As a staff, 454. Their whip is, see if they have it on here. They don't. Okay, so it's 51 walks, 92. So their whip is clearly about a 1.5. So again, they're significantly higher whip than UNC. So I think UNC has both the edge. Again, Friday. Look at Friday's going to be a game, right? Because they have Matt Scott, 156 ERA, 17 innings, 19 strikeouts. Like he's pitching. So Friday will be a game. But I just think Stanford has again, they're fighting uphill, and they're going east to UNC, I believe. Someone correct me on that. I'll look at it right here. Yeah, it's in Chapel Hill. So again, it's just going to be a tough series for Stanford. But we'll have an idea, right? We'll have an idea of how good their offense is, how good the pitching is. But my take is that I think UNC just has a massive edge in every game, right? So I think if Stanford goes 1-2, they're happy with the weekend, right? And then again, Stanford, Cal, Zach, I agree. Stanford, or not Stanford. I keep saying Cal. Stanford UNC is one of the better matchups in the ACC this weekend. But I think personally, I think the most even matchup is Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech. I think it's pretty dead even. And again, you're just going to get to see from the last time you talked about Georgia Tech's pitching, which is 4 to 5 games in. What has changed since? They've had. And again, albeit in like some Sunday games, and it was really that series against Marshall They had some late in the game bullpen guys give up some runs. Um, so again, like the bullpen has kind of kind of regressed just a little bit. I mean, your top guys are still pitching great, but when you have to go again, when you get out of your first tier bullpen arms, that's the question for every team is once your go-to guys out of the bullpen can't go, or it's too early in the game to go to one of them, and you have to go to that second tier. How good is your second tier? I think Georgia Tech's second tier is definitely better than last year. But again, we'll find out more this weekend when they're facing the top offense in Virginia Tech. That's what's changed. And again, I think on Saturday and Sunday, both your Saturday guys got really good stuff in Brady Jones, but he's not a command guy, right? He's got to get chases based on his stuff. He's not just filling up the zone with strikes. Like Tate McKee, what you've seen from him on Friday, he's throwing strikes, he's striking guys out, like he's pitching really well. Saturday and Sunday, what you're worried about is if your Saturday guy goes 3 or 4 innings, then you got to cover innings in the bullpen. Sunday guy, right now, um, he's the one that's struggling and not throwing strikes, walking guys, hitting batters, and he's kind of gotten away with it so far. But once you get an ACC play, it's not going to happen. Did you see Stetson playing BYU in the snow yesterday? Them Stetson players were cold. Yeah, I mean they're probably like, "What is this stuff? What's this white stuff falling from the sky?" Um, but I do think that's the best series. I think the best series in the ACC this weekend is Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech, to me, by far, because I just think they match up really well. Both of them have elite offenses. Both of their pitching staffs have done pretty well, and it's going to be a test of both of their pitching staffs. That's going to be and again, that's like the test every weekend. Typically, is in this era, if you have elite pitching, you can win you have a chance every game. If you don't, you just got to hope your offense doesn't run into a cold streak or a game where they just can't get guys in. Which is again, that's been Georgia Tech for the last 3 or 4 years. Is that the offense has been elite, and the question is, can we score enough runs every game? So that'll be a good matchup. You're a homer. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, Zach. Cap. Kyle, I'd like to see you do a video on dealing with adversity, dealing with slumps, blown saves, letting teammates down, negative emotion, etc. How do high-level players manifest through adversity? I think it's a great question, Cap. And again, this is something that at the college level, really, if you're a really good high school player, let's say you're going to like a Division I mid-major or a Power Four, like the gap in talent is so great that you're just going to be able to out talent people in high school. In college, that gap shrinks tremendously, and then it becomes about who can deal with failure the best. And I think it means Zach thinks you're a bias towards Georgia Tech. I mean, I'm a former Georgia Tech player, so I think that's understood, right? I'm always going to be grass is greener with Georgia Tech than a downer, but again, we'll find out this weekend, right? But Cap, I think what separates the elite players and the really good players from just like the average college player is that when the failure hits, you don't immediately go to worst case scenario. You just flush it, right? It's in the past. I made a mistake, or I had a bad at bat, or I blew a save. Nothing I can do about it. Dwelling on it's not going to make it any better. All I can do is control what's in front of me. And that was one of my strengths as a player, was just being able to flush it and move on to the next at bat. And a good example is like the first time I ever started in a big league spring training game. I'm hitting like seventh in the lineup, and my first at bat, this was in 2017 spring training. I strike out, terrible at bat, I even walked in the dugout and I think I was like, man, that was terrible. But I just reset, like refocus. Don't let it affect my next at bat. And the next at bat, I come up with 2 outs and a couple runners on and get into a good count and hit a 3-run homer. So I could have let that at bat just bring down the rest of the game, but I flushed it. Like even when it was in a big league game, trying to impress people, Like I just try to control what I could control. And once that at bat's over, there's nothing I can do about it. So letting it affect the rest of the game is just going to make me worse. Brandon, isn't this an important month for D1 and high D2 NAI to recruit sophomore JUCO kids now that it is a contact period and the kids have some stats under their belt? I assume portal players in. Yeah, it is. I mean, this is the part of the year where like the schools you're mentioning are looking at JUCO. Now, again, you don't have to be a sophomore, right? I mean, you can be a freshman in JUCO. But they're definitely like, this is the part of the year where there's enough at bats under their belt where you're starting to get an idea who the players are and who are the guys you should be looking at. So definitely it is. And I like a couple of the portal guys I work with, like that are doing really well. This is a time when the schools are starting to kind of look into them, maybe get out to see him. One of my guys on the West Coast, he's got a couple D1s going to see him soon. So like you're right, that this is a good time. I'll be interested to see Georgia Tech's pitching against ACC teams. I'm not an expert, but definitely seems like GT pitching is very improved. Yeah, I think really to me, I think your tier 1 guys out of the bullpen have done really well. The tier 2 have been good enough. And I think to me, the biggest question marks for Georgia Tech's pitching staff are Saturday and Sunday is, can those guys be consistent enough? That's the question. Zach, Dusty, I'm really interested to see too. I have to assume there will be a return to mean with it, but I do think they have more serviceable arms and their top couple should be improved. We will have a clearer picture after this weekend 100%. Also worth noting that Georgia Tech has had one away game this year. This will be a test on a few levels. Yeah. Yeah. With any, again, like the first ACC weekend, those first couple ACC weekends, it's a test for your offense and your pitching staff, right? Like it's like you're not playing as high a competition early in the season before the conference starts. So your numbers will usually be slightly inflated. And the question is just how inflated are they? Like the good thing for Georgia Tech is like they're coming in with probably their best numbers as a pitching staff coming into the weekend into conference play as they've had in the last 3 or 4 years. So right, so that like right away, that's a positive sentiment if you're a Georgia Tech fan. And then the question is, okay, how inflated are the numbers? And what's like Dusty said, what's the mean regression going to be? How far are they going to regress? And that's true with an offense as well. You know, you got Georgia Tech's playing quite a few a couple of freshmen are starting in the lineup every game. Like they've really been averaging like 2 or 3 freshmen in the lineup pretty much all year. And then a couple like of those sophomores, like a Carson Kersey, for example, who had a decent year last year and he's off to a really good start. Like what's the regression for those guys going to be as well? So that's what you're looking at. Kevin, 100% agree. High school to D1 college, watching the freshman adjustment firsthand. Yeah, it's a massive adjustment. Like, again, like when you talk to kids in high school, they're like, oh, we faced a guy throwing 90, 92 today. And then you go watch the game and the guy was throwing like 87 or 86, 88, and he like touched a 90. And for some reason, like almost every pitcher in high school, like whatever their max velo is, when they get to college, it's like always a couple down. Like that's always the case. But when you get to a high level D1 or a really good mid-major, you're facing the best travel ball arms you faced all year every single day in inter squads. Like that's the reality every day. So the question is like, how do you compete against the best pitchers you may have faced in high school? You're facing those guys every day. And so those first couple weeks in inter squads, like it's a massive adjustment. And, you know, my freshman year, you're facing a guy who was maybe the best, if not, he was definitely one of the top 5 starting pitchers in the country in Mark Pope. And then you're facing a first rounder in Jed Bradley. And then our Sunday guy was Buck Farmer, who's pitched in the big leagues for the last 10 years. So that's an adjustment, right? When you're facing those guys. And then quite a few players in younger arms that ended up going into pitching the big leagues. Our closer, Luke Bard, has pitched in the big leagues for a little while. And then guys like Dusty pitching AAA. So like you're facing a bunch of dudes, especially at high level D1s, that are going to go on to play pro ball and maybe end up pitching the big leagues. I was talking with someone recently. Crazy to think that in 2018, I think it was, Georgia Tech rotation had 4 big leaguers in it: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and midweek, all MLBers. Yeah, Xavier Curry. Sorry, 2019, not that long ago. Xavier Curry, the lefty. I can never remember his name, but I know who you're talking about, Dust. Yeah, and again, it's just like sometimes you don't really realize while you're playing with those guys how good your staff was. And then all of a sudden, 4 or 5 years down the road, you're like, well, all those guys have pitched in the big leagues. Um, so that is a crazy stat. And that 2019 was obviously really good. They hosted a regional and kind of righted the ship for like the Georgia Tech program's trajectory, right? Because it had gone down for a while, and that 2019 team was kind of a Curry, Brant Herter, Amos Willingham, Connor Thomas. Yep. Freshman pitcher / hitter, which is easier to adjust to the D1 talent? I'll say, I mean, it's a massive adjustment on both sides, Coog, because the thing that pitchers struggle with is, one, the biggest adjustment for the pitchers is the strike zone now at Division One is much tighter than even it was when I was playing. You know, these guys they don't quite have big league zones, but they have like that AA caliber zone where, 3 inches off the plate is a ball now. And so pitchers are throwing into a much tighter zone at the college level way tighter than they in high school. That's why you see so many freshman pitchers in college. They'll throw a pitch that's like 3 inches off the plate, and the umpire balls it, and they kind of give them a look like, where is that at? Right? Because they don't know the zone. So you're thrown into a much tighter zone, and then you're facing just way better hitters. So mistakes are gonna hurt you way more. So on the pitching side, it's a massive adjustment. On the hitting side, again, it's just like you're facing guys with way better stuff, way more consistent velocity, way better off speed stuff, and again, like one thing that's a little bit easier for hitters is the strike zone is tighter now, so you don't quite have to. When I was in college, like 4 inches off the plate was a strike all the time. Like with 2 strikes, you got on top of the plate because you knew if he could paint it 3 or 4 inches off the plate, it was a strike three. So I don't think I don't think one is really more difficult than the other. I'll always kind of side on put like maybe on the hitter side because hitting is just so difficult in general. But pitchers now more than ever have a mass and again, like with the way the balls are flying in college baseball, like the pitching adjustment is massive. To your point of adjusting, I went from a mid-major Hartford and transferred to a Power Five Kentucky. Even the difference there with speed of the game and quality of arms is amazing. Everyone is unreal. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you go from like a Hartford to a Power Four school, and I mean an SEC school, right? Like top of the top. It's a massive adjustment, right? Because maybe it's 2 or 3 mile an hour harder on average with the fastball. That's a big gap. Like if the average fastball in the SEC is 91, and at Hartford it's 88 or 87 in conference, like that's a huge jump because that means if you're averaging 91, that means you're topping out at like 93 or 94. And so it's just like it doesn't sound like as much, but when you're facing that every single time, man, it's like that's being behind a couple mile an hour on a fastball is the difference between you hitting a double and striking out, right? So it's a big adjustment. Kevin can speak to pitching, smaller zone, batters don't chase, walks kill you. Yeah. And again, it's like exactly what you said, Kevin. I mean, the strike zone's way smaller now in college because of TrackMan and all that stuff. Like the umpires actually kind of know, like they get graded on it. They get the report after the game, like they're trying to improve. So strike zone's way smaller, and like you can make a good pitch, and with the way the balls fly in college baseball now, a guy doesn't even have to really hit it that great, and it's a double or a home run, right? So pitching, when I was playing with the new baseball, when the new bats came in and the balls were still those terrible balls, like if you could throw strikes and had good stuff, you were going to have success as a pitcher. Now it's not just about throwing strikes. Like you have to really command, you have to make like effective strikes, right? You can't just throw it to the middle of the zone. It's got to be, pitching to the thirds of the plate, around, the fringe of the top, the fringe of the bottom. You throw it in the heart of the plate now, you're getting crushed because again, they don't have to square it up. Yeah, if you miss middle, those balls leave the park, 100%. John, yeah, weekends at Hartford were typically like 88, 92, and SEC is 94, 98 on, yeah, definitely on Friday. Plus, those guys have 4 pitches and they can throw whenever they want. Whole different ball game. Yeah, yeah. And I think I think it's safe to say like the average fastball last year in the SEC was 91 or 90. It was like in between 91 92. But like your Friday, Saturday guy in the SEC, a lot like in the ACC, is again like if you're a Friday guy on a good team in the SEC or the ACC, like you're usually a potential top 5 round pick, I should say, top 5 round pick. So again, you're talking about a guy who's getting picked and being looked at as a guy who's going to pitch in the big leagues. So and the other thing is with 20 rounds, now there's way more talent staying in college baseball. So like that junior, maybe Saturday guy who had a really good year, but maybe isn't going to get picked high enough to leave, and he's getting NIL money, he's going to stay again, right? So there's not as much turnover from the draft point of view, because when I was playing it was 40 round draft. So your junior year, there's no NIL. You're signing as a junior, or you have no leverage as a senior. Got to go, Dusty. Got to go, boys. Good luck to everyone's teams this weekend. Yeah, thanks, man. But you're right, John. And again, I do think like it is safe to say that like the radar guns, let's just say, like the difference in a Hawkeye system or TrackMan in velo is it's better at picking up the velo than it was with like a radar gun back in the day. So like when people say like the guns are juiced, they are, but it's not like 5 miles an hour. It's like a couple mile an hour, right? So like your SEC arm is throwing 94, 98 now. 15 years ago, they're probably like 92, 95. Which again, that tracks with like the guys I faced and everything. And what was funny is, when I got to Double A, and I mean, every starter in Double A, and so I had a conversation on the thread about this. Every starter in Double A in the Southern League when I was there was 94, 96, and you just looked at it. It was like you're used to it. It was like, oh, he's 94, 96. Okay. Like you didn't even balk at it. You didn't go like, oh gosh, he's throwing 94, 96. Whereas in college, when you faced that, you were like, holy cow, right? So just the velo, guys are better at training velocity now, but part of that is like the tracking systems are literally getting the velo right after it leaves the hand. Whereas like 25 years ago, it might have been 5 feet out of the hand or 10 feet out of the hand. And that's enough to get a mile an hour or two drop in velocity. Because again, like think about it, like a 92 mile an hour fastball usually crosses home plate at like 84 or 83. So you're typically dropping anywhere from like 7 to 10 miles an hour at home plate from how hard you release it. So the more accurate the systems, like again, Nolan Ryan, who knows what he was throwing back in the day, right? He probably easily was hitting 105, 106, like some of these guys are now, right? Some of those guys are now. And that's why when guys are like, oh, well, in the 80s, everyone was throwing like low 90s. And it's like, well, the radar guns were not nearly as accurate as a TrackMan or a Hawkeye. Some of these systems that they have now in place that are just getting it right after it leaves the finger or the fingers. So the velocities have in general improved, but part of that is like just the tracking systems are so much better. They're getting it right as it leaves the hand. So what I'm hearing is I threw harder than what was on the radar. Yeah. Not by much, but certainly like a mile an hour or two harder, realistically, right? And you're still throwing the same. It's just like they're catching the ball way closer to your leaving your hand than in like a couple decades ago. So like the guys 20 years ago and 25 years ago that were throwing like mid 90s would probably be, in the upper 90s now. Just from how accurate the tracking systems are now, right? Because a lot of that stuff didn't get updated until like the 20 teens, as far as TrackMan and all that stuff. Like, listen, when I got drafted, TrackMan was like not even a thing. I mean, that was kind of just coming about, and that was 2013. So, like these systems have gotten even since then, they've gotten even better. right? So, um, yeah, there's a reason why. Again, like I don't. I'm not trying to say that like pitchers aren't throwing harder than they did in the past. I think they are, but it's not nearly as much as people think. Like it's a little bit harder, but it's not a lot harder. The compare is still pretty much the same from system to system. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Kevin. It's like it's not like a massive difference. It's like a mile an hour or two. But again, when you see things like the average fastball in the major leagues, I think last year was like 94. Um, if you take that down a tick to like 92 or 93, then that tracks, right? Um, and again, like maybe that's slightly higher than what the average was in the 80s, but it's not like this massive difference that I think some people act like it is. Um, because listen, I mean, like Randy Johnson threw really hard, right? Nolan Ryan threw really hard. It, I, the elite guys would be elite in any uh, environment. And it's like the old question is like, well, Babe Ruth, if he played in today's era, uh, he wouldn't be able to hit at all. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, he came up in a totally different environment. If Babe Ruth, the same talent, same exact guy, grew up in this era and grew up facing the talent like it is now, he probably still would have been elite. But if you take Babe Ruth from like the early 1900s and just placed him in 2025, yeah, he's going to struggle because he's like, wait, these guys are throwing harder than the guys I'm used to. So I always say, like, if you took like a Lou Gehrig and he grew up in 2001 and he got to the big leagues at 20 and at 19 or whatever in 2020, like he's still going to be an elite player because it's all about the environment and the pitching you're facing the whole way up. So I think it's a argument in bad faith when these people say things like that. Well, like a player back then would have no chance now. It's like, well, yeah, if you took that player and he didn't grow up in this current environment, of course he would struggle. But it's if he grew up in this environment, he'd be probably very similar to as the talent he showed in the environment and the era that he played, right? So what Canes? What are we thinking, man? What are we thinking Miami this weekend? What are we thinking? Are we thinking 2 or 3? Are we thinking sweep? What do you got? Let's see here. Two or three, Zach? Yeah, I think again. I think UConn. I think UConn is again. UConn's always a sleeper. I know they're not playing well. I think they're 2-7 right now. They may not be quite as talented as they normally are, but again, it's just like you got to take them seriously because they're a very well coached team. Miami wins Friday and Saturday. UConn Sunday. Okay. I'm gonna look at. I'm gonna do like just let's do a compare to Georgia Tech's team with Virginia Tech because I think it's fair to to show you guys why I think it's going to be a slugfest and a battle of whose pitching does better. So again, look at Georgia Tech as a team. They're OPSing 1,050. Okay. So this is an elite offense right now, and they have 28 stolen bases and 31 attempts. So they are getting on base. They're crushing extra base hits. They lead the country in doubles, I believe. They have 21 home runs, 2 triples. In 13 games, they have 46, 65 extra base hits. So basically, they're hitting 5 extra base hits per game right now, which is elite. They're walking. They're getting a lot of hit by pitches. They're playing very good defense. Jim Penders is a great coach. I don't see him getting swept. Yeah, it's going to be really tough, I think, to sweep him. But let's look at Georgia Tech. So right now, Tate McKee is your Friday guy. 15 innings, 12 hits, 6 walks, 19 strikeouts. Really good across the board. Their number one, their A arm out of the bullpen right now has been Mason Patel. I think the question is, does Patel move into Sunday if Riley Stanford continues to struggle to throw strikes and getting hit? Like Brady Jones, he had that disastrous first start, but since then he's really kind of righted the ship. The question for Brady Jones, the thing that makes Brady Jones at least like you're thinking he's going to be all right is in 10 innings he's only given up 5 hits. Now he's walked 8 guys, which is that's concerning in 10 innings, but he's also striking out a lot of guys. And again, these 10 innings have come in 2 starts because he basically got like 1 out, I think, in his first start because he just could not throw strikes. And so a lot of those walks were in that first start as well. So again, it's a little skewed. But Riley Stanford's numbers to me just look like he is due for a massive regression. And again, like ERA doesn't tell the whole story. He's given up 14 hits in 12 innings, 8 walks, and 7 hit by pitches. So that's 29 base runners in 12 innings. That is just not going to cut it, even with 14 strikeouts in 12 innings. Right? His opponent's batting average is 311. So again, that's really tough to recover from. As a team, 3.97 ERA, like solid pitching numbers. They're striking out a lot of guys. They're not walking much. They are giving up a little bit of hits, but they're minimizing the walks, which is really good. Okay, so that's Georgia Tech. Now let's look at Virginia Tech. Okay, and again, this is a Tim Schreck. We'll look at UCF. We'll look at UCF after Virginia Tech. All right, Tim. I'll tell you what I think. All right, I do not like this setup. Yeah, Mike Gambino has Penn State rolling. He does, man. And I think he got a lot of the reason he took that Penn State job is he got a lot of what he felt like was the support he needed to turn Penn State into a winner. And I mean, so far so good for Penn State the way they're looking. All right, let's look at Virginia Tech. Now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more for you guys. So this offense as a team is hitting 343, like very similar to Georgia Tech. Less home runs, but similar doubles, a few more triples. They are walking more than they are striking out. They're OPSing as a team just under Georgia Tech, like 1,028, right? So again, it's an elite category. Georgia Tech's 1,050. Virginia Tech's 1,028. Now, this is skewed kind of heavily by Sam Tackett. He's hitting 525. That's pretty good. 2 doubles, 4 home runs, and 8 walks to just 7 strikeouts. Now, as a team, they've stolen 16 bases and 22 attempts, so they don't have that running threat factor that Georgia Tech has. But again, this offense is pumping runs. They have 129 runs in 13 games, so they're averaging, again, 10 runs a game. Very good, elite offense. Penn State is my alma mater. The old coach wouldn't leave Penn State to recruit, is what I heard. Gambino's going out to get kids. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there are a lot of head coaches who, once they get kind of settled, they don't want to go out and recruit because they felt like they kind of paid their dues as an assistant and whatever, and that's fine. But like, again, when you go to a big tournament, you see Tony Vitello out everywhere. He is everywhere. So there is something to a head coach getting out and recruiting because as a player, when the head coach goes to watch you play, you think, okay, they're pretty serious. They're pretty serious. All right, let's look at the pitching staff. 319, right? Like better ERA than Georgia Tech. They are walking more guys in about the same innings, so they've given up less hits, but they're walking significantly more. Their whip is going to be right around like a 1.5 with hit batters at 8. So I mean their whip's right at 1.5, which is solid for a staff. 207 or 207 opponent batting average. So again, you look at their starters here. A couple of them have, all their starters have done pretty well. But Brett Renfro and Jake Marciano both have done pretty well. Uh, 13 innings. It's not a lot of innings and 3 starts, but 9 hits, 8 walks, 20 strikeouts. So really missing bats, even though giving up, 17 base runners in 13 innings. Marciano's given up 10 base runners in 13 innings to 19 strikeouts. So I do think Virginia Tech may have, and again, it's a matter of their competition, and Virginia Tech hasn't played that many strong opponents. But I think Virginia Tech may have the edge on Saturday and Sunday from a starter perspective. But again, we have to see. But both these teams are playing really well right now, and it's going to be a slugfest. Like whose pitching staff can step up and stop the bleeding. But let's look at UCF. Let's look at their lineup here, and then we'll probably call it a day. All right. All right, here we go. So, man, Edion Espinal, 7 starts. So he hasn't started every single game, but man, he's doing pretty good, right? 519, 2 doubles, 2 home runs. As a team, hitting 336, really good. 39 extra base hits. So they're not in that elite category as far as OPS. So like their batting average is in the elite category, but OPSing like 978 as a team, which is really good. Don't get me wrong. It's like that is in that elite category. I'll say they're not in the thousands like some of the best offenses like Tennessee, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, and some others. But they're in that they're in the elite category, right? Not stealing a lot of bases, 11 to 17, so no base threat. Like that's one thing about Georgia Tech. They're OPSing super high, and they've stolen 28 of 31 bases in just 13 games. So it's just like another kind of it's just another variable they have that a lot of teams don't have that slug like they do. But they've scored 104 runs in 12 games, so they're kind of right at that 9 runs per game, which is really good. Equal walks to strikeouts with the 22 hit by pitch. So they're not striking out a lot. That's a really good sign. Again, in college baseball, guys, like defenses are not that great. So you put the ball in play, good things happen. As far as a pitching staff, they're excelling as well. 2.83 ERA, 101 innings pitched, 80 hits, 38 walks, really good. So again, they're in that kind of only 8 hit by pitches. So, 118, 124 base runners in 101 innings. So like that whip is right at, it's like 1.2, 1.3, which is a really good spot to be. So I think UCF's got a team this year. I think UCF's going to be really good. Again, they're in the Big 12, right? So it's kind of, again, it's a different animal, but UCF is kind of like a Power 4. They are a Power 4 now, but like they've always been kind of a Power 4 baseball program, right? So this will be, I think UCF's in a really good spot. And one thing you like to see is that almost every starter in the lineup is hitting over 300. Like it's not like 3 guys are hitting over 400 and then the other guys are like 200 something. It's a pretty even lineup as far as performance. So I think if you're looking at the indicators right now, the indicators are looking really good for UCF. Walking as much as you strike out. Looking at the errors, they've only made 9 errors in 12 games, so they're playing really good defense. They're defending at basically a 980 clip, which is really good. Again, like pitching and defense, man. Like defense is way more important than people think, and especially in college. Like if you have a really good defending team, you're not giving opponents extra outs. You're just going to win more games because of it. So UCF looks really good on paper right now. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I might do a space and a stream later tonight after some of these games are over, and we can discuss like the way things went and everything. Let me know. Um, I'll let you know about that. So just be looking out for it. But appreciate you guys. Thanks for all the comments and the questions and everything. And about to have some good baseball starting. So I'll see you guys later.